Hey guys, this recording is to help you to learn how to use the Durham Tech databases. Before I tell you how to access the databases, I just want to review quickly what a database is. A database is a collection of online resources that you can use for research. And I encourage you to use the databases rather than just a Google search because the databases are going to have sources that have already been reviewed for credibility. And so you don't have to sift through as much junk as you would with just a simple Google search. So that doesn't mean that you can't use Google, but the databases are really where you should be looking for sources. So to access the databases, you're going to go to Durham Tech's homepage and you're going to click on Current Students. And then after you click on Current Students, you're going to click on Library. And then from there, you're going to click on Articles, Journals, and Databases. Once you click on Articles, Journals, and Databases, this brings you to a list of all the databases that Durham Tech has access to. So you can see up top, there's this ABCD list. I'm going to click on the P because I like the database Proquest. You could also scroll down to it, but that's going to jump you to the P's. So once I've done that, I see Proquest Central, and I'm going to click on that, and that actually brings me into the database. So I've already been in the database today, so it's going to remember me. But when you go to log in, it's going to ask you for a username and password, and you want to use the same login that you use as you do for Sakai. So once you get into the database, you can search it with key terms. So a few things that are important to know about the database is going to search for what you type exactly. So if you spell something wrong, the database isn't necessarily as smart as Google. It's not going to guess what you mean. So make sure that you're spelling your search terms correctly. So I'm going to pretend that my research question is how to combat plagiarism in the classroom. And to search the database, you want to use a combination of key terms. So if my research question is how to combat plagiarism in the classroom, I'm going to use the word plagiarism, and then I'm going to type and I'm going to type university because I'm interested specifically in colleges, and I'm going to use the word stop instead of combat. So if this is my search, the word and in between each key term is telling the database that I only want sources that contain all three of those words, so plagiarism and university and stop. So I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to get a bunch of results. Okay, so you can see the number of results you get over here in the corner. So I got over 10,000 results, which is a ton, but I can sift through my results. I can filter my results to get that number down. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a date range to make sure that I'm only getting current sources. So you can drag this little arrow here to edit your date range, and I'm going to do the last 10 years. I'm going to click update, and then that's going to narrow my search results. So I still have a lot. I have 7,000, but let's say I know that I only want to do newspapers. So if I know that I only want to do newspapers, I can click over here where it says source type, and I can select just newspapers. And then that's going to give me results within the past 10 years that have been published in newspapers. So you can see that narrows my results a lot to 887. So that's still a really high number, and I obviously don't expect you guys to read 887 sources, but that should give us a little bit more manageable list. So let's say we decide that number 4 looks interesting. Professors diligent in trying to stop students' plagiarism. We're going to click on that, and then that's going to bring us to the actual source. So once the source opens, you're going to see a few things. You're going to see an abstract, and an abstract is a little snippet or summary of the source, and then you're going to see the full text. And you can scroll down to kind of get an idea of how long the source is. Notice that when I'm scrolling down, the keywords that I searched for, like plagiarism and university, those are going to be highlighted in the source. So you don't need to read through every single source right away when you're doing your initial stage of research. You want to just get a collection of sources that you might be able to use. So let's say I think that this source looks like it might work. but I want to be able to get back to it later. So over here, you have a bunch of options for how to get back to your sources later. And this is really important when you're doing research, that you keep track of the sources that you might want to use so that you don't drive yourself nuts later trying to get back to them. So first, you can save the source as a PDF. You can email the source to yourself. You can print the source if you have a printer and you want a hard copy, or you can create a list of citations for the sources that you might want to use, and then you can get back to them later through the citations. The citation tool is also super useful when you are making your Works Cited page. So I want to take a look at the citation tool right now. So if you click on Cite, the citation style that you want is MLA 8th edition. If this is the first time you're using the citation tool, it's probably going to default to APA because that's the first on the list, but you want to make sure that you have MLA. So if it says APA, you need to click on that drop-down menu and go to MLA 8th edition. We want the most recent. So once you have your citation, what you can do is you can copy it and paste it into a Word document. So if I had a Word document open, I could copy and paste my citation into my Word document and then save my citations for later. So something to keep in mind, however, with the citation tool is that it's not perfect. So you should think of the citation tool as a rough draft, and then you need to go in and edit any errors that exist in the citation that the database generates. So for example, this citation gives us the title of the piece, Professors Diligent in Trying to Stop Students' Plagiarism, in all capital letters. But we know that MLA calls for each letter at the beginning of a word in a title to be capitalized, but not the entire word. So you would need to go through and capitalize just professor, just diligent, just trying, just stop, just students, and just plagiarism. The other error that this citation has is how the date is formatted. MLA calls for the date, so the 14 to come first, and then October with a period, and then the year. The other thing that the citation doesn't have is your access date. So after the URL, you would want to add the word accessed and then put the date that you accessed the source. And finally, MLA calls for you to omit that leading HTTPS colon, so you would need to delete that. So the citation tool is a really good tool to get you started, but think of those citations as rough drafts, and you need to double check to make sure that they're accurate. Okay, so one last thing that I wanted to show you guys in the database is if you're in a source, on the right-hand side, you have this list of what's called related items. So the database will suggest for you sources that are related to the one that you've clicked on. So you can see that under related items, you have a list of different sources. So you could click on a positive solution for plagiarism, and that's going to bring you to another source about plagiarism. So using that related items list, once you're inside an actual source, can be a good way to get to other sources that are related to the one that you were just looking at. Okay, so that's a basic overview of how to use Proquest Central. You are welcome to use other databases as well. I just went back to that database list just to give you an idea of some other databases that are useful. You can look under this popular database list, and you can see CQ Researcher. That's a good one to use. Opposing Viewpoints and Context can be a good one to use. And then also under that A list, Academic OneFile is another good database to use. So you're not limited to Proquest. I just showed you Proquest because that's the one that I like the best, but you can use any of the databases that you want to use from that list. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please shoot me an email and let me know. Thanks.